Welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. And boy, there's a lot riding on this one. Anyone who's seen Monday Night Smoke knows exactly what I'm talking about. But before I even get there, I was gonna do this yesterday because I had quite a full day planned today, but I managed to move some things about and here we are. Now by the time you see this, your boy is actually gonna be at a Frank Warren show. I know. Shock horror, right? But no, I'm actually gonna be covering the Raven Chapman fight and possibly the Brad Foster fight as well. Now you won't see me on any official broadcast, but I'll be working to some degree. I'm looking forward to that. So let me kick it off real quick by saying I expect fairly easy victories from both of them. Raven, I am expecting the knockout, so you know, when you see this back afterwards, I expect to be right. And Brad Foster, yeah, pretty much the same thing. But yeah, enough of that. Let me move on to the next thing in contention. Okay, now look, we've got PBC tomorrow. David Benavidez versus David Lemieux. I haven't even bothered to check the rest of the card because the main event is a trash main event, to be totally honest. However, within that, I'm expecting this to go one of two ways. If it's actually at the 168 pound limit, then I can see David Benavidez winning between sort of around 7 and 10 if he has to actually make the weight. But as I haven't seen the weigh-in as of yet, if he doesn't have to come in at the strict 168 pound limit and comes in, you know, closer to say 170, 171 or something like that, I expect it to be over within 5. I mean, it may take a bit longer, but ultimately, I expect a knockout from David Benavidez to David Lemieux. It's not a hugely competitive fight, and Lemieux hasn't looked great since moving from 160 to 168, and he wasn't looking great towards the back end of his 160 run anyway. So that's enough on that. Let's get to the part that everyone's here to see. All right. Big Matchroom card in the O2 Arena, London, Greenwich in London. All right, it's 9 fights on the card. However, I'm not going through all 9 fights. I'm only going to go through what's on the main broadcast. So that starts with Robbie Davis Jr. against Javier Molina. So Robbie Davis is 22-3, I believe, with 15 KOs, and Javier is 22-4. with 9 KOs. I think he's got momentum on his side, and I do think he wins the fight on the weekend. I'm expecting a decision, but it could be a very, very late stoppage, like round 11 or round 12. But I think he's got this one on points. No big breakdown, that's just the thought process. Next up is my Blueborough compatriot, Ellie Scotney, 5 minutes down the road. She is facing Maria Cecilia Roman, who in her last fight recently lost to Ebony Bridges. She also lost to Melissa Odessa the fight before that, but it was actually the fight before the fight. But because Melissa didn't have enough pro fights, the IBF wouldn't sanction it as a title match. Otherwise, Ebony never would have got that belt in the first place. And I think Melissa will be coming to collect down the line, but another story for another time. In this fight, Roman is actually going up in weight. So in theory, that may make her a bit fresher, not having to cut those extra 4 pounds. But it also means she's a naturally smaller woman in terms of stature. I don't think this is going to be the first fight where Ellie finds her knockout gloves. but I do think that she will put on a good enough performance to get a very credible UD. I'm thinking 7 rounds to 3 or 8 rounds to 2 in terms of like visible to the audience. Forget necessarily what the judges score it, just how we see the fight. I don't think she's gonna get stuck into a tear up too much in this one, to be honest. Like I said, there's a lot riding on it, and there's a championship fight riding after that. So yeah, that's my prediction. Eddie Scotney, unanimous decision, pretty dominant victory. What's the next fight on the card? The next fight is Adam Babic versus Adam Balski. Now, I've not ever seen Adam Balski fight, so I won't lie to anybody. But I do know there's quite a big Polish community, will probably be in attendance. Not only that, there's a big Polish boxing scene at the minute. And I mean, yeah, they're sort of, you know, they're getting their cycle of fighters up. But I just feel like at Bridgerweight against someone that's a naturally similar size and height to him, you know, both come in, you know, under the 215 pound mark. Balski was, I think, 210, Babic was 208. I'm not gonna say steamrolls him, because again, I've never seen this guy fight, but I feel like the volume is gonna be the volume. And the same way Babic has been knocking out 260 pound guys and 240s, and I just don't know if Balski, unless he's literally the most fleetest of foot or has got the hardest punch ever seen that we've never heard of, I just think the volume's going to be too much, and I'm predicting another knockout. I think it's got to be a 12 rounder if it's for the silver belt, so within 6 I think is a safe option. So that's what I'm going to predict. Adam Babic within 6 rounds. Yeah, pretty much. Let's move on. What have we got next is the co-main. So co-main event is Chantel Cameron versus Victoria Bustos for the unified super lightweight titles. I expect Chantel Cameron to be very vicious in this fight, purely because she's angry that the undisputed fight at 140 hasn't happened yet. For whatever reason it is, I'm not speculating, but I know that she's frustrated. And whenever she's frustrated in her fights where either someone's got under her skin or something's wound her up, you see the extra levels of spite come out in her. Victoria Bustos is a 2-weight champion, started off at 135, so you know, she didn't even max out at the 140 on the scale. She came in at like 137 and looked very fleshy. So you can clearly see that she's naturally not at those sizes anyway. So she did very well to win titles at both 135 and 140. But on this occasion, I am actually thinking that Cameron does a very, very, very big number on her and stops her between rounds 7 and 9. I'm gonna go for the stoppage. If not stoppage, it's gonna be a very almost one-sided affair. I don't think Bustos will manage to win a round, and that's not to say she's a bad fighter. I just think Chantel's on a mission, naturally bigger woman, and she's spiteful. So yeah, I'm predicting sort of around 7 to 9. If it ends any earlier than that, then I'll be even more surprised. But yeah, I don't see her letting her foot off the gas on this one. She wants that undisputed, and I think she's definitely not going to let this be a speed bump. Now we get to the main event of the card. So to drum up a bit of suspense, even though if you've watched this channel long enough, you already know what my prediction is. Just want to talk a little bit about how this fight is won and lost in both corners. Let's start with Joshua Buatsi. Now, Joshua's biggest strength is his aggression and his ability to make it a rough and uncomfortable fight. Yes, he's got boxing skills, he's got ability, but ultimately the dog in him is the thing that overwhelms and gets people out of there. So in order for him to win this fight, he has to, as he said himself, be Joshua Buatsi. He can't be looking to set traps and try to jab with a jabber, hook with a hooker, try to lead off, sort of try to walk people into shots and be a back foot counter puncher or a strategist. He's literally got to go forward with lateral movement, with as much safe entries into sort of the middle to outside, to the middle to inside range as he can, and just make the fight an up close attritional fight from round 1 to whenever it finishes. The body work is going to be key, because neither of them have got the biggest of frames, but Buatsi's body is a little more filled out than Craig's, so you would have to assume that maybe Craig's weak spot may be the body, and there's a lot more chance of you getting some good body shots off on Craig than getting some clean shots to his head, to his face, because even if you connect, he is quite good at riding and slipping shots to take a little bit of the sting off of them. And from all reports, some that I already know firsthand, and some second-hand and even third-hand reports, his chin is very, very solid, and he's been hit by some of the hardest punchers in the country, and some of the hardest punchers from what I've heard in America as well, and never necessarily been wobbled, and has never been off his feet on a fight or in sparring. So that leads me to believe that the way that Buatsi is going to win this fight is ultimately not to go head hunting, to be fully aggressive, to stay on the inside of Craig's long limbs and long relievers, and work the body before trying to aim for the head. As they say, flood that basement. And even if he has to get dirty and rough, which he's known to do, boy, I mean, that groin guard best be extra padded. But if you need to hit man low a couple times, that's what you need to do. Punch him in his hips, punch him in his thigh, get a point taken off if you need to. Don't let it go to points. Whatever you need to do to stop any kind of movement, that's how you get it done. Craig, on the other hand, now Craig has a much better jab than Joshua Buatsi. They've both got good jabs, but Craig's jab is better. Plus, he has the longer levers, the longer limbs. We've seen that Craig can out jab people with reaches that far exceed his own, which he did with Shakan Pitters. Shakan was 6'6", Craig was 6'3", and Craig was out jabbing him, beating him to the jab, slipping on the inside and getting to the target before his opponent. Now, that's one thing he does need to do here. He needs to get to Buatsi, because Buatsi does not move his head enough to be able to slip any hard punches that are coming his way. Ultimately, it's got to be a snappy jab. No range finders. Forget range. Everything's got to be either ramrod, or it's got to be a setup. It's got to be a jab that almost blinds him to set up a straight backhand coming forward, so that you can step directly in and load off with a hook, either a left hook or a right uppercut moving forward. Now, Craig also has to be careful not to lunge in from out of range, because he has done that on occasion. Even in the last fight against the Polish guy, there was a couple times he lunged in to try and close the distance. He wasn't thrown off balance, but he was then able to be caught in between the motion. They weren't big shots, but this is the crowd. This is where, if there is a Buatsi crowd in attendance, they're going to react to that. That's going to affect what the judges then decide to do. Outside of that, then you now have to reset and you have to change up your momentum again. So ultimately, he has to keep it a chess match. He has to keep it boxing. But most importantly, what he can't do is afford to start slow and work his way through the gears as the fight progresses. He has to start fast, even if it's just for the very first round. Start fast and set that pace to make sure Buatsi doesn't grow into any unnecessary confidence, so that momentum doesn't trade with him while the rounds are going ahead. So that's my keys to victory to both guys. However, it's about who I think's gonna win. In my personal opinion, and part of this is backed up by facts, there's a reason Joshua Buatsi vacated the British title rather than fighting Craig Richards when he was his mandatory, what was that, 4 years ago, back in 2018. I don't think this was the fight he really wanted, but I don't think there was many other options for him. Now personally, it's gonna be a very hard fight for both guys. This is like, both guys have got a lot riding on this. There's local pride, there's potential title shots, there's the backing of Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, because best believe whoever loses is gonna be, you know, way back down on the cards. You know, there's not, unless there's a rematch clause, in which case you might get a little redemption thing a la Anthony Yard and Lyndon Arthur, but ultimately, like, someone's gonna lose a lot of backing, probably lose bigger paydays, you know, and may not get that next chance, or may have to work extremely hard to get to that chance. So neither guy is gonna try and coast in this. It's gonna be a war, because the crowd won't let it be anything but. And I think Craig Richards comes out the other side of that war as the winner. Now I'm not sure if it's gonna be a points or a very late stoppage, and I'm talking sort of rounds 10 and 11, but Craig, I believe, is gonna start fast and maintain a very good pace throughout the fight. As I said, Buatsi isn't hard to miss with the jab or the right hand. Chalic proved that, Ryan Ford has proved that, even Bolotnik's proved that, to a lesser degree, but in a more durable and attritional fight. So my pick is Craig Richards to win this fight, decision or very late stoppage between rounds 10 and 11. But yeah, that's the takes. Put yours down in the comments below, and let's see who's right or who's wrong. But for now, I'm going to go and enjoy Raven Chapman put a beating on her opponent. But yeah, we'll see how many I got right, how many I got wrong, or if I got all the methods right, then I'm gonna be on some serious smoke come Sunday morning. But as long as I'm right in general with all the fights, and as long as Craig does what I know he can do, I'm gonna have a great weekend. But that's enough for me, guys. Thanks very much for watching. That's Basis Picks. Locked.